Yeah, I went down to this Oklahoma full auto shoot last weekend. This big machine gun shoot in Oklahoma.
But you still want to get out
Yeah,
because
they're
there's
killing cars. They put these cars up there and they're suspended and they're full of like explosives. And so like they'll have a sniper shoot this one explosive and they start the cars rolling. And as soon as they do it, it's like try to let it roll 10 feet before you shoot it. Well, nobody waits. As soon as they hit the sniper goes like, and everybody's got those machine guns. This thing's rolling down the hill and they're always away. It's like, and you just see the cars go. I mean, the hood flew off one. Just it was like 100 feet in the air. Yeah, no, it's you buy a magazine and you can or a belt. Yeah, a minigun, so 4,000 rounds a minute. That's 100 rounds.
you call it.
Yeah, no, we've got a quorum. So, it's just slightly after 7 o'clock in Gardner, so I'm going to call City Council to order. Invite everybody in attendance to stand and join us with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I haven't heard anything from the council president. I'm expecting him shortly. So, first item on the agenda this evening, since there's no public hearings, is a presentation from Gallagher and Company. So I know we've got Gail here. Gail Merriweather, welcome back. Been here before. Look forward to hearing what you have to show us.
Thank you. First, I want to make sure, Kim, that... Okay, I got it. Thank you. Good evening. How is everyone? I trust that you're doing well. Thank you guys for the opportunity to come back again and have a conversation about compensation. I was here in 2015, so it's kind of quick for a new study. So what I want to do is kind of go through the process so that you guys will understand. And of course, if there are any questions, I'll be more than happy to ask your questions. We don't have to wait until the end. Feel free to stop me and ask any question that you might have, because if any of you are close to 60 like I am, you need to get those questions out now and not hold them to the end. You might not remember. So for starters, what we did was consistent with 2015. We talked to each of the department directors. We wanted to understand the relevant labor market. Where were they losing employees? Where were they recruiting employees from? If there were any issues around compensation for any jobs in particular, conversations about the private sector. Are they losing any folks to the private sector? There were a few things that we did learn. I think over within the utilities, there is some competition with one of the water companies for the most part. So we wanted to make sure that we covered all the bases in identifying the relevant labor market and taking a good look at what other people are paying for the same jobs that you guys have for the most part. Then we reviewed the job descriptions and the organizational charts, and after that we conducted the market analysis. Our goal is to understand the external market, then make sure that after we develop the structure, we take into consideration internal equity, and then we develop a salary administration program that's consistent, simple, and easy for the city to follow. In this process, we looked at a number of different surveys. We looked at comp data. We looked at the Kansas Municipal League Compensation and Benefits Survey. We also took a look at the Kansas Wage Survey, but the Kansas City metropolitan area, not Western Kansas and not the entire state. Oftentimes when we take a look at the state is a little bit lower than the Kansas City metropolitan area, so we looked at the Kansas City metropolitan area. I also take a look at the Mid-America Regional Council Comp and Benefits Survey. I worked for Mid-America, not as an employee, but assisted them with developing their compensation survey for a number of years. We also take a look at Towers Watson, their office professional technical survey, and that's an opportunity to understand the private sector within the Kansas City area. And last but not least, we take a look at Wage Wizard as well. We'd like to take a look at that because it's salary.com, and most employees will take a look at it, so we want to know what's there as well. We also have the opportunity to take a look at payroll from some of the relevant municipalities. So we took a look at Overland Park, and a lot of the municipalities on this list are driven by some of the conversations that we had with the police department, some that have water and utilities for the most part. But we took a look at Overland Park, the United Government of Wyandotte County, we took a look at Olathe, Shawnee. We also took a look at Dodge City, Garden City, Junction City, Derby, Hayes, Liberal, Pitt, Newton, and Merriam. And the reason we like to do that is because understanding the proximity and that labor market is very important, but also understanding municipalities that might be similar in size to Gardner is equally important. So when we take a look at Dodge City, they have slightly higher, a population of about 27. We've got about 20 in Gardner, but it kind of averages out. And you take a look at the number of employees, staff, Gardner has about 138, so it's a little bit lower than everybody except Merriam, but Merriam is fairly close. So we want to make sure that we have at least 5 legitimate data points to determine what the relevant market would be. After we've gone through and we've gathered all the data, you'll see here that all I'm dealing with for the most part are just numbers, and I'm looking for natural breaks in the numbers because that's how we develop those salary ranges. And I think we may have played this exercise the last time I was here, and my question always is, if we tried to group all of these numbers in the same salary range from 37,678 to 75,921, if we average those numbers, just about what would that average be? Don't all try to throw something out at the same time, you'll throw me off. Something close to about 45 to 50,000. So then that means that's what that midpoint for that salary range would be. So then the question becomes, if we've got a midpoint of about 45, 50,000, and the market says your job should be making about 37,678, if we place that job in a salary range with a midpoint of about 50, then we've inflated this job because that market number is very inconsistent with the midpoint of that range. By the same token, if the market says your job should be making about 75,921, and we stick your job in a salary range that has a midpoint of about 50-ish, again, then we've kind of shortchanged you because the market is lower than what the market, is higher than what the midpoint of which we've placed you. So that's the exercise we go through with establishing the salary ranges. So we do it just looking at the numbers, and after we've developed the ranges, then we go back and put all of the employees back in. So it's a separate phone call to HR that says, now can you send me all of the employees' names and their salaries, and we compare that to that salary minimum and the midpoint and the maximum. We want to see if anybody's underpaid, where are they paid in relations to the midpoint of the range, and where are they as it relates to the maximum. So we've got a hypothetical John Doe. So if the market for John Doe's job is about 37,678, and you'll notice what we would have done was to group, I skipped a step. But if we, instead of putting all 4 of these numbers in the same salary range, we would put $37,000 and the $39,000 job in the same salary range, average that, and that midpoint would be about $38,820. We'd have a separate salary range for the $45,000 job, and we'd have a separate salary range for the $75,000 job. Is everybody with me? Okay. So now we'll do John Doe. If the market for John Doe's job is this $37,000, what we simply said was, okay, John Doe, what's his salary? Put him in this salary range with a midpoint of $38,850. And then we compared his actual salary, the $44,597, to the midpoint. And that's how we develop a comp ratio. And a comp ratio is simply a comparison of your actual salary to the midpoint of the range. And the midpoint of the range is a reflection of what the market pays for your job. So with this, we'll see that John Doe's comp ratio. Can anybody guess what John Doe's comp ratio is? I'll give you a hint. It's on the bottom of that page.
150.
Perfect. Yes, it's 115, which means John Doe is paid, his pay surpasses the market midpoint, the market for that job. And then I would be asking questions like why. It could be because he's been with the city for 15, 20 years, and that's the expectation that if you get increases, then that number will be a little bit higher. So I think it's just important to explain that, because oftentimes I get a lot of questions about why do we slow people down when it comes to increases towards the maximum of the range. So I've got a hypothetical. If a receptionist makes $32,000 today, and she got a 3% increase annually for the next 25 years, what do you think that salary would be for him or her after 25 years at 3% every year for the next 25 years?
C.
Anything different than C? Absolutely, it would be C. And so hang on to this, because this is why when we establish the range, there's a minimum and a maximum so that it doesn't surpass what the market says that's too extreme. So, all right, so then with that, for the city of Gardner, your ranges moved by about 3.85% from when we did this work in 2015. And that's consistent with what we recommend that you would have been doing. And that would have been to adjust your salary ranges upwards by about 1.5% to 2% each year. So you would have done it twice, so you would have been somewhere right in that 3% ballpark. So then this is what the new structure looks like for the city of Gardner. So what does it mean? There's still 10 salary ranges. The comp ratio, and that's the average, so then we know what the comp ratio is for every employee, and then we know what the average is for all of the employees. So this year, your average comp ratio is about 94%. If you decide to adopt the new structure, the cost to implement, and the cost to implement is simply bringing the employees who are paid below the minimum of the salary range up to the minimum. And that would be $3,935.
How would that change our comp ratio and our average comp ratio?
To do the implementation, it doesn't really, because it's just $3,935. So I
That's
think
across all employees.
So we adopt a new structure, our comp ratio, and we bring people up to this minimum.
Okay.
Then our comp ratio would naturally go down, right?
Well, let me say, when I say $3,935, that's not per employee.
It's across the board, right? I understand that. I'm talking about the comp ratio of 94% currently, right? That's the average comp ratio for all the employees.
Average, yes, average of everybody in the pool.
So if we change the structure from where it is now, where we're at 94%, we
This
change
is-
the structure to a more expensive structure, right?
This is actually what it will be to implement, because I've already gone through and done the analysis. When I did this in 2015, I think it was about 93%. So then you've already given increases, made adjustments, and moved people up. So you're fairly consistent
Right.
with the market movement. So then the overall average comp ratio right now is 94%. For this $3,935, I think it's only 2 or 3 employees who may have a comp ratio of around 77%. And because there's a staff of about 183, the movement of this 77% for these 2 employees to 80% isn't significant enough that it's going to affect the 94% in one way or the other. So the 94% most likely will stay consistent unless we look about 5 or 6 decimal points out.
So this change to the structure that you're talking about is not a change to the entire structure for all 10 salary ranges?
It is
only-
actually.
Oh.
It is. It does. It changes all 10 salary ranges, because I do it blind. I don't look at what I've done before until I'm complete. So then there are some ranges at the top that would be adjusted probably by about 4 or 5%, and ranges at the bottom by about 3%, 2.9%. The average movement from 2015 to 2017 is about 3.84%.
So what this means is if we adopt the new salary range, basically all of our employees but a couple are still well within above the minimum, well within the range.
Not necessarily, yes, above the minimum, and that is something I think that we still need to talk about, because this gets us to the minimum of the salary range. So basically what it says is over the last 2 years, you really have not lost any ground, and you've kind of maintained and kept up with the market. But then there's always a however.
That's where I'm at. I know that, our officers, this is just what I know. There's a $4 to $5 an hour difference between what officers can make here and what they can make just at the sheriff's department. So I'm trying to figure out if we're at the low end on that, that's where we're going to lose people on that.
And
Actually,
is that included? Would that kind of position be included?
yes.
All the positions are included.
Well, I mean, Johnson County, though,
Let me
county
offer,
salaries.
when we go through this process of compensation, we really need to find at least 5 reliable sources for it to be legitimate. So comparing just to the county for the police department isn't going to quite cut it for us on our end. And so I took a look again, and then we also want to be mindful, and I absolutely understand losing people to the county. The county has about 500,000 in the population that they're responsible for. And I think they've probably got about 3,000 employees or something like that. So that differential exists. The chief and I have talked quite a bit. I finally stopped threatening him, and I didn't see Jay, so I think I'm safe, because I said I can take you if Jay's not here. But let me do say, for the last 2.5 years, I've been very busy doing basically municipality work. And what we're finding is that there's movement within the police departments, and there's also movement within parks, public works, within those construction jobs. That's where we've been seeing the greatest movement. The movement within the police department hasn't necessarily been that everybody is fixated on what the minimums are. The minimum range that we're recommending for the officers is right around 42. The county is right around 44. When we look at the average of everybody, it's still right around that 42. So the 42 is consistent. The maximum of the salary range for the county is right around 58. We're recommending a maximum of the salary range right around 63. So we're higher than what the county does. But the issue has been across the board that a lot of my police departments are losing seasoned officers. They're not necessarily the applications for police into the academy, etc. That number has gone down significantly. So the competition is swiping away your officers who do a good job. Don't have to train them, don't have to worry about things going awry, and they're taking them away. And that's been our conversation. So one of the things that we did today on my vacation day, Chief, was another conversation about how do we get to the point that Gardner does not lose its officers because of the cost of training and rehiring and going through that process. So one of the things that we've taken a look at is typically when we took a look at the information, and Chief was kind enough to grab some information from another municipality for which I'd done the work, and I'm not going to mention who they are, but he grabbed their data. So then from their data, they've got a number of other police departments, so we kind of know if there's a step system, we are officers within the step system, what does that look like? So even with your officers and the maximum of the salary range that I am proposing is greater, so too is the midpoint. My midpoint is right around 53. The midpoint in the marketplace is right around 51. The issue is making sure that we understand that if an officer has been an officer for 2 years or 3 years or 4 years, where is his or her pay without developing a step system? I don't like a step system because if it's 10 steps, then it's going to be shorter than the maximum that I'm proposing.
Right.
It's not going to necessarily move on an annual basis, so they're going to be stuck there, just looking at steps. So what I said to the chief and to Jay is the system that we have now this structure is consistent with the market. We just need to make sure that we understand where the officers are and where you need to pay them in order to compete. But there's also another caveat. When it comes to Johnson County's police department or the sheriff's department, it's larger. There are more opportunities for promotions, and officers will leave for that as well. So, there's two bits and two pieces to it, but we want to make sure. So my main concern was to make sure that my structure was consistent with the labor market in this region, and it is. Because, shall I talk about everything we talked about? No, the detectives. Okay.
I'd love to know. We're going to find out eventually.
I'd like to jump in at some point, too.
Come on up here.
I want to clarify a point with the county. The county's top is, God.
You want these?
The county's top is 58.
Yeah.
But they have a master deputy rank that goes to 72, and the only thing you need to jump from a deputy to master deputy is 3 straight evaluations as satisfactory. So that's nearly everyone. And
But
Can I-
they don't have a corporal.
well, they don't have a corporal, but that's 3 positions. And just one more point I want to make. Gail said the average for all city employees was 3.85%. For police officer, it went up 2.3% on the top. For sergeant, it went up 3%, less than the average. The only one that went over the average was 4% for lieutenant. So I think those are,
Okay, wait, don't go anywhere.
hey, I'll fight all night. Let's do this.
All right.
Chief, can I ask a question about the sheriff, the master deputy? So is there a finite number of positions that they have for that? Or, so is there, I don't know, 10 positions, and then if you have these evaluations, you're qualified? Or is it every person who has 3 satisfactory automatically gets that?
Every.
Okay.
There's no additional responsibility. It used to be different. It used to be that you had to have 3 exceptional evaluations, but in this competitive market, they changed it. Now it's just satisfactory. And then you jump into the scale for master deputy.
Okay.
Let me also say, there are a number of police forces that will have officers 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s, or 1s, 2s, or 1 and a master. You're not structured that way. You've got a corporal. It is not unusual that when they've got those levels, they don't have a corporal rank. You also didn't have detectives, and so as the chief and I were talking about, there were some other officers whose numbers were a little bit higher, and he said they spend a lot of time with detective work. I said detective pay is different than an officer's pay, so we've taken a look at it, and so I'm suggesting that you absolutely take a look at the detective pay. The only issue is the detectives and the corporals will be in the same range, and then the maximum on that salary range is higher than the master police officer, master deputy. So be mindful. When you take a look at the structure for Johnson County, it goes from deputy sheriff, master deputy, and then the sergeant. So if we tried to pair that up with Gardner, we would have police officer, corporal, and then sergeant.
How many corporals are we allowed to have?
We have 3, but when you look at the police officer 1, 2, 3, 4, that's typically a tenure thing.
Right.
It's not a promotion, it's based on tenure. So we don't have that because, I mean, we have 32 law enforcement employees, and that was never implemented. It's not something that I'm opposed to, but we've never done that based on tenure. So the corporal and the detectives, where I come from, detective wasn't a rank. So some agencies do it, some agencies don't. It's just not something that I was familiar with.
So do you think, so if the goal is retention of officers, I would hypothetically think that this tenure program and paying on tenure would help with that, because then you're incenting people to stay to get more money. But I'm not a big fan of that. I think that it should be based on
Merit.
But I mean, I guess I don't know, I can see either way.
Can I address that?
Yeah.
The problem in the past was we had a flawed evaluation system in my eyes. You had to get a 2.75 to get an exceptional rating, which is like 93% of the categories. Everybody in the city had the same evaluation, and then police officers had an additional evaluation. So we had to get 93% to get above an average rating. You were either exceptional or you were average or below average, and nobody's been below average. So those raises were depressed, or those increases were depressed, so they didn't get the highest raise that they were eligible for. And we have within our range, and Gail and I talked about this, we have where you can move with the compa ratio, you can move to the midpoint in 7 years. So really it is a tenure-based thing if you have an average rating. So in the new evaluation, you're able to do that with the 3 out of 4. The 3 is meeting expectations. So that part of it is fine.
High quality.
The problems we're having, high quality. The problems we're having with retention is that we have people that if you take the range, even the old range, and do the compa ratio 1 to 7 to midpoint, they're not even close. And that's the problem is that we have no progression based on an average or high quality employee to get them to the midpoint. And then once you're past the midpoint, we have officers that, there's a system in place where you don't get the same raise if you're at the midpoint. So as they work towards the 120% of the midpoint, which is the top of our range, there's officers that have an exceptional rating that are getting 25, 30 cents a year raise because of the way the evaluation and the compensation was put together.
Could we look at a lump sum in those cases?
Let me say this, Councilwoman Harrison. What he's saying, basically, they have not reached the maximum of the salary range. Typically, when you reach the maximum, then it's a lump sum adjustment, and then you just get a check. There's nothing going to your pension. It's done. What we've done is slowed you down once you get a compa ratio that's greater than 110, 115%, because we're already paying you 10 to 15% higher than what the market says. So it's just a matter of slowing down so that there still is a contribution to your base pay, and there's also still a contribution to your pension. So it takes a little bit longer. And then the other piece of that is that the ranges move on an annual basis. If I wouldn't have come back and we would have just adjusted the structure, and let me get this right too, when the chief said 3% and it wasn't, he's not talking about merit increases. On an annual basis, we go through Towers, World at Work, SHRM to understand how the structure should be moved. So the ranges should move on an annual basis. The last 2 years, that's been about 1.5% to 2% per year. The overall average movement of your ranges was 3.84%. So you've been consistent. Even when I did the reanalysis, updated the structure, is consistent with how the salary ranges would move. Don't get that confused with the merit increase, because the average merit increase in the marketplace has been about 3%, between 2.7 and 3.1%. So then merit increases would have been by about 6%.
But the range for police officers.
But the range is so low.
Only
that-
ran up 2.3% over 2 years, not per year. So the average of 1.5% to 2% did not apply in this case to the police salary range.
But my maximum is still higher.
I think the problem is we're not getting,
This,
This is like a comedy roadshow.
yeah, I mean,
yeah. Well,
for some reason, we're not able to get those guys and gals up to a spot where they're, what they feel and what I know, I mean, from all the agencies I talk to guys in all departments all over the metro, we're way lower than everyone else. And I mean, that's across the boards, starting out, and they're just, and they're really brutally honest with me, going, we're gonna come down and pilfer your guys and your gals, and you're gonna be all with a bunch of newbies.
see, and I've got the data in front of me as it relates to everybody else's structure. And if any of my clients are listening, it's because the chief swiped it from one of my clients. So the structure itself is sound. Where you are paying within the structure, the chief and I have spent time, it's my vacation day, to go through that process to see where they are and where they should be. So we've played with numbers and this is what I asked. I said, tell me how long they've been with Gardner. And in this particular rank, because we also looked for the corporals and the sergeants, and I think we're okay there. And the lieutenants, because Jay, right? Yeah. And then I said, how long were they an officer someplace else? So we've already gone through to say, if you were an officer, if you've been an officer for 3 years, and we've chopped up our deal and say, this is where your pay should be. The piece that we've not gotten settled between us, because I just really don't know the number, is that if we've got someone who's been an officer for about 17 years someplace else, and then they come here, where should our number be? Because we have to be cognizant of the officers who's already been with us and not interfere with how we pay somebody bringing them in, that we don't then step on the toes of an officer who's already been here. So, and I think there's probably only about 3 or 4 that we need to look at. So I said, just hang on, I'm on vacation, but I'll make sure that we get it done. Am I on vacation?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can we, so Chief, I think the issue is probably these newer employees and how we retain them. Can we, and I mean, from my.
Actually, it's not.
Okay.
We have 11 officers that have a year or less, and the bottom of the range is fairly consistent with everybody else. It's how they progress through the range and getting to or near the top of the range is where we have a problem. Because like if you look at, Rob Huff's a perfect example. And you do a lateral, he made more money as a deputy in Johnson County than he would have if he would have got promoted to sergeant here. So, and that was primarily because once he got to a certain point in our range, then it slowed down to where you can't. And you know, if we had the flexibility, we could have kept him for, $5,000 a year.
You're not going to always be able to compete with Johnson County. Sorry.
Well, that's actually a governing body decision, not a.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
so let's
But
just
they-
make that clear.
but-
We can compete if we want to.
Council.
We only have enough people to meet our minimum staffing needs now. So every person we lose, I have to pay somebody time and a half to make up that staff.
And that's
Right.
costly. Let me do say, Councilman Melton,
Yeah.
I've had the city of Kirkwood as a client, and so if you know anything about St. Louis County and what they just passed, the starting salary for an officer is right now, it's right around 55.
Right.
And that number is going to go up because of their budget. I'm going to put this into, wait.
You want me to leave?
Kale, I'll just be honest with you. I mean, I'll look at it, but I'm worried about what's going on in Gardner, not anywhere else. So that's my focus is Gardner, not what's going on anywhere else.
But that is going to affect every place else, because once we get one that starts to pay a higher salary, then eventually we're all going to have to compete at that level, because it swings over. I'll come over and chat with you about kind of some of the other things, but what I just put in front of Councilwoman Harrison and Ms. Harrison Lee is kind of what we've been looking at for the police department. I canned all of the names, and you'll see that there's like 7 little spaces across, and then there's a column that says, I only had those 2 on that, but you have it though. There's a space that says how long they've been an officer, how long they've been with the city of Gardner, and what that would look like. So, because I don't want you guys to panic. So far, if we move the ones up that you and I've done so far, we're talking about $16,000. And then when we take another look at probably about 3 or 4 more as to what does that mean, and how do we say if they've been at another force for so long and then they're here, then we'll put them here, then that's our next step.
What are we looking at right now? Chief, do you have any idea on overtime, what we've paid out so far because we're short-staffed or missing?
I haven't looked at that.
I just, because I'm
I don't
guessing
wanna- I don't wanna
16,000 will
guess.
be.
I can get that to you, but I don't want
No,
to
I
guess.
understand, I know, but I'm just saying 16,000 is nothing when it comes to overtime and what we're paying people for.
So I guess, well, and I mean, I saw that. So I'm trying to figure out what I know what we're trying to solve, but I'm trying to figure out what are the recommendations to solve it. Is it we're gonna take these people that are kind of in the middle. I mean, I get we can move people in 2018. When we do performance reviews, we can say, hey, these people are gonna be brought up, but what are we gonna do ongoing to, I guess, accelerate that pay scale? And should it be accelerated for everyone? Because I'm kind of the person that if you're not performing, which I know, Chief, you said there isn't anybody, but say we do have someone, then you shouldn't necessarily get that same treatment. So that's what I'm trying to figure out is what is
What
the
does it,
recommendation?
and I thought this next slide was imperative, don't go nowhere, to compare 2015 and 2017. So when I did this work in 2015, the comp ratio was 93%. And then 2017, it's 94%. The total under the minimum in 2015 was right around $4,000. That's all it cost to implement because you weren't that far off. 2017, that's fairly consistent. But if we say, because this is the big challenge oftentimes, if we move everybody to a 90% comp ratio, this is how I measure whether or not my clients have made progress. When we did that analysis in 2015, it would have been $171,000. Today, it's only $122,000, which means the city of Gardner has made some progress in addressing those employees who had comp ratios below 90%.
I guess, do you think, Chief, it would benefit us to change our structure to more mirror something like the county's doing? Or would that help with the salary structure to get people more in line with where we need to be?
Well, it would always help. I mean,
Right.
in the context of our budget, that's not my decision.
No, I understand. That's why I'm asking you, because if that would be a solution, I'd be interested in looking at it.
I can't see.
Oh, you want these?
Right. I mean, because if we have the corporals, now we can't have 30 corporals, obviously, at some point, if we have all of a sudden all these people stay behind, so there's
Well,
a
that's
structure
what I
there.
was trying to get. Is there
Right.
a natural progression that if somebody does, like you said with the sheriff's department, and I'm not saying that, a satisfactory or whatever, but is there something that you say, okay, every officer can potentially, achieve this? We're not going to make designated
Right.
positions like we did lieutenants, but everybody has the opportunity to do this and earn more pay? Or is it just we need to figure out how these people in the middle, we're just going to consistently make sure they're at 90% or 95%, which I kind of struggle with that because I don't want somebody who's been here 2 years at 90% with somebody who's been here 8 years.
Right.
So that's,
I think there's a way to fix it within the system if we just look at where they should be.
And we just go on recommendation from you, is that,
Do what?
the recommendation from you on that, would that be what you're recommending? Like if you go through and go, hey, this person needs to be here, and we all look at it and go, okay, we agree on that, is that?
Well, yeah, I'd have to work with Gail and Cheryl, and
Right.
I wouldn't do that. I'd be afraid to do that by myself
That's
without
right.
their approval.
No, that's what I mean, and then bring it to us and say, here's our, you guys' recommendation on
No,
those.
Gail and I talked about that today at the end. There's a way to fix this within the system.
Right.
And get people to where they should be.
Okay.
I think it's reasonable. I don't think anybody has the expectation that we're gonna compete with Olathe, OP, and Johnson County dollar for dollar. I mean, that's
I don't,
not-
yeah, I agree.
And I understand that, and I think we can work within the system that Gail's put together. We just have to, we just have to look and figure out how we're gonna address the people that have been here for a certain amount of time, and then how we're going to figure people that came here with experience, how they fit into that formula. And Gail threw out some ideas today that made sense that I think we can work with.
Even on her vacation?
Yes.
Maybe on our non-vacation day, we can get this all.
That's impressive.
She's a big fan of Jay Belcher, so I brought him in the room.
Oh,
just
yeah.
to get her on the phone.
And I also had him talk to one of his old officers in my meeting. So,
It's true.
yeah, so I know people.
All right.
But let me do say, Councilwoman Harrison, when we pulled together the initial performance management system, we came back, we also developed a salary increase matrix, and it looks like this. If you're 90% or less, that means you're not very consistent, but it was determined by your comp ratio, and we would do it, pace it, and be consistent across all departments. That's why our number is no longer 171, but is 122 on this slide, because we've been consistent in how we've attacked those people whose pay was greater than the 80%, but less than the 90%. And, and I get it when one says, well, I'm exceptional and you're only going to give me 1% or 2%. What we have to be mindful of is this old slide. If you're making 32 and I continue to give you 3%, you're going to be at $67,000. And if you're going to pay a receptionist $67,000, can I start like 20 years ago?
Well, yeah. But
Yeah.
you got to look at inflation, though. Inflation is almost, the 3%. So, I mean,
No.
over 67 years, you're going to...
No, but inflation hasn't
25.
been that.
Well,
No, because at one time it
on
was a
food and
minus
fuel,
8%. Yeah,
it's
well,
up there.
no, but this is the price of labor.
understand.
Okay, so then let me say, one of the things that we can do, because we can do some things with these quartiles. We might even say if you're over 115%, then how then does that change? So then it's 1 to 3%, because at 115%, you're already 15% higher than the market midpoint and what the market says your job should be. And what we really want to focus on are these, or what we really want to attack are those folks who are low in this comp ratio, because they're not even at market, depending on, so I always think it's dependent upon how well you perform your job and, to whatever degree, how long you've been in that position. Because if it's someone that's new in the position, the expectation is that they are low within that salary range.
And so we aren't, just to be clear, I know your chief's up there right now, but we're looking at this with all departments, correct? Yeah, okay, all right. I just want to make sure we point that out, so.
Yes.
Even though Chief's standing
all
up there, we
departments,
got it.
yes.
So this is not just about the police department then?
Right.
No?
And that was my concern with the average comp ratio, because there's an inverse proportional relationship here that we're kind of glossing over. If we change the structure, and if we change the structure to increase the midpoint, then the comp ratio will decrease. And then next year you'll come at us with, but our comp ratio is too low. So that's my concern.
Not necessarily, because when you go back to this slide, Councilman Moore, you'll see that over the last 2 years, you've made progress.
Of course we have, because we haven't changed the structure.
You didn't change the
But
structure.
the salaries increased.
But let me say this, the 2017 data is consistent with had you changed the structure. So had you changed the structure, had you adjusted the ranges each year, you would still be in the same place by a 1.5% across the board, or up to 2%. You would still be in the exact same place without me even coming back this year to take a look. Not yet. Just in case. So then-
no, actually, so I get this exercise and we're gonna figure out how we fix this, but I'm still concerned about what are we going to do going forward to make sure it doesn't continue to happen. Kind of to Lee's point only, but I mean, the midpoint's always gonna shift, right? Potentially. And so how are we gonna make sure that we have, whether it's a rating structure or pay, so that we, every year, are making sure that we're addressing this problem and not just ignoring it?
Councilwoman Harrison, it will adjust upwards, and because the chief, was it you that asked how often are we supposed to look? And I said every 3 to 5 years, unless there's a significant shift in the marketplace. So there's 3 years that I shouldn't have to do this work, and we just adjust. And then after about that 3 to 5 years, then that's when you need to take another look, because every job doesn't always go up, and every job does not go up consistently. So then the structure refixes itself. And I said to the chief today, this is reminding me of IT some 15 years ago. Well, it's settled down now. So it all settles back down. So it doesn't always just keep going up. It depends on the marketplace. The issue is make sure that your structure, the range minimums and the maximums, can maintain some consistency with the marketplace. So the job that you lost, at the time you lost it, we had not adjusted the structure. There's a strong possibility that had the structure been adjusted, you would have had the space to make that movement.
So, bottom line, this was a presentation. We're not expecting to take action on it this evening. It seems as if the two of you are working well together, and if we need more Jay Belcher, he's always available. And I think that everybody's committed to resolving some of our problems as far as paying compensation and how it relates to retention, especially with our police officers. I know that they're not the only department in the city that's having struggles.
Right.
Some of the utility people, they've got a significant deficit
Yep.
there as well. So, but unless somebody else has something to say or additional questions, thank you, Gail, for your time again. Chief, appreciate you working with Gail and other staff to get us moving in the correct direction.
Thank you for coming out on your vacation day,
I
Gail.
was going to say, I'm on vacation. Woo-hoo, bye, y'all.
See ya.
4th of July, everybody.
Yeah, you too.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is also a presentation. It's to proclaim July as Parks and Recreation Month. And that took longer than I was anticipating. And we don't have a whole lot of Parks and Recreation staff here. But Scott Gary's here, and for the record, I just want to say that Parks and Recreation does a heck of a job for us. It's an award-winning department. 14, 15, 16 Tree City USA awards in a row. And even just recently, Adriana Holopric was awarded the Outstanding Aquatic Center Manager of the Year back in 2013. The department won the Blue Chip Award from the Kansas Recreation and Park Association and Blue Cross Blue Shield in 2014. And in 2015, the Aquatic Center won the Special Event of the Year Award. Not only that, but tomorrow night, Celebration Park, everybody's going to come out, see Drake White and the Big Fire. You know, last year we had 12,000 people that showed up. The first year that we did it at Celebration Park, we had 5,000. Then 8,000 and 12,000 for Chase Bryant, and with any luck, we'll have even more tomorrow night. But that's not just Gardner residents that are taking advantage of that, but that's people that are coming to Gardner. Maybe some of them are going to want to relocate here. So, Scott, please share with your staff how much we value the work that you and they do. And I'm going to read the proclamation. Whereas park and recreation programs are an integral part of communities throughout this country, including Gardner, Kansas, and whereas our parks and recreation are vitally important to establishing and maintaining the quality of life in our communities, ensuring the health of all citizens, and contributing to the economic and environmental well-being of a community and region, and whereas parks and recreation programs build healthy, active communities that aid in the prevention of chronic disease, provide therapeutic recreation services for those who are mentally or physically disabled, and also improve the mental and emotional health of all citizens. And whereas parks and recreation programs increase a community's economic prosperity through increased property values, expansion of the local tax base, increased tourism, the attraction and retention of businesses, and crime reduction. And whereas parks and recreation areas are fundamental to the environmental well-being of our community, and Gardner, Kansas recognizes the benefits derived from parks and recreation resources. And whereas parks and natural recreation areas improve water quality, protect groundwater, prevent flooding, improve the quality of the air we breathe, provide vegetative buffers to development, and produce habitat for wildlife. And whereas our parks and natural recreation areas ensure the ecological beauty of our community and provide a place for children and adults to connect with nature and recreate outdoors. And whereas the U.S. House of Representatives has designated July as Parks and Recreation Month, now therefore be it resolved that I, Chris Morrow, Mayor of the City of Gardner, Kansas, do hereby proclaim July as Parks and Recreation Month. Again, Scott, thank you very much to you and your staff. Next item on the agenda is public comments. Members of the public are welcome to use this time to make comments about city matters or items on the agenda that are not part of a public hearing. If you're going to make public comments, we do ask that you limit them to 5 minutes or less. Don't use any profanity or engage in any personal attacks. With that, the microphone is open. With no one coming forward, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Oh, okay.
We have a winner.
I was waiting.
I didn't know if I was going to be the only one. Thank you. My name's Janine Bomani, and I've lived in Gardner now 2 years. I absolutely love it, but I will be leaving if the fireworks continue. I think it's barbaric. I live in a very nice subdivision with homes attached, and I have a neighbor that has an arsenal, and I have reported it last year when my husband was ill, and they continued well past midnight. We woke up to bottle rockets on our roof, on the deck, in the yard. This year it started with 5 and 6-year-olds shooting them. These are all shot in the street. I have my son's car that I had some mechanic work done from him. He just graduated. And I had it parked in the street in front of my own home, and came home yesterday and it's burnt. It's got a burn mark on the side of it, and the kids did it. They admitted it. So I just totally against it. Very patriotic. I love my country. I love to watch fireworks in a professional setting. I just think they have no place in a neighborhood with homes very close to each other. And they're going to be shooting them tomorrow, and I spoke with the officer out in the lobby, and apparently they're not supposed to be shot in the street. I know the police, the hands are tied a lot of times, and by the time they get out there, but I will be calling again tomorrow because I'm not going to have my house burnt down. My son's car's been damaged, and my 12-year-old Golden peed all over the house yesterday because of all the noise. So that's all I have to say. I'm totally against it, and I love Gardner, but I won't stay another year. Thank you.
Listen, I appreciate your comments. I didn't tell you to please state your name and address for the record. If you could provide that to
my
the
name's
city clerk.
Janine Bomani, and I live at 956 Witch Hollow. That's it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else?
Sorry, Henry planned on coming up today, but my name's Rochelle Gates. I've lived in Gardner 20 years, and this is the first city council meeting I've ever come to. And I just wanted to say thank you for all the good work that you guys do, especially the police department and Parks and Rec.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can we get your address as well for the
Sorry.
record?
That's 33345 West 143rd Street.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? No one else coming forward. We're going to move on to the consent agenda. Is there a council member that would like to remove an item from the consent agenda?
Item 3.
Anyone else? I'd entertain a motion on consent agenda items number 1 and 2.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Moore, second Harrison, that we approve consent agenda items 1 and 2. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Consent agenda items 1 and 2 pass. Consent agenda item number 3. Todd?
Yes,
Question?
yeah, well, this expense, I've looked at this before, but, I mean, this is about $50,000 that the city is paying for the school crossing guards. Is that correct?
Yes.
And am I also correct that the school does not reimburse for this? Is that correct? Yeah.
The school does not pay anything for reimbursement for crossing guards.
And according to Kansas statute, we are not required or obligated to pay for that. Is that correct? According to what I read.
The streets are our jurisdiction, so that's considered our responsibility. There's no school district in the county that pays for crossing guards. I had them checked today. There's none. Police departments cover that cost because the streets are our jurisdiction.
But I think it seems like what I read though in Kansas, legally, we're not required to. Is that? You know?
I'm not sure. Are you talking about a statutory requirement?
Yeah, I believe so.
I'm not aware of that.
There's no statutory duty to provide crossing guard.
The crossing guards, most of them are out, and they're not even in front of the school except for a handful of them. Most of them are like 100 or Center and Grand, and they're next to the schools, but most of them aren't even on the school property, really. So I think that's why the cities do them, and I know all the cities around do them. I know some of the people who have the contracts with them, and they do it with all the cities take care of them all over. So because it's city streets, so
It's for the children.
Well, so rec programs, but
are we trying to get back at people? Is it?
No, I'm not trying to get back. We've looked at a list of pretty important things that we need, and $50,000 would go quite a long ways. I mean, that would be a patrol car. That would be a position that we desperately need.
Well, I know the school district's not obligated to do it either, so I'd rather have I'd rather have people in the crossing guards than having the kids cross by themselves, because I've sat out there and watched, and if nobody does it, then we're going to have major problems.
True.
So, I guess if we can talk to the school district about it, but we've done it for how many years?
Yeah, this is not something I would want to change. I think it's a necessary thing. We have to do it for public safety.
Public safety.
Well, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, at one point we had officers doing it, which is why I think we had officers that were at different locations, which is busier locations, I should say.
Right.
Actually, I believe the positions were inside the police department, and if the person that was manning the crossing guard didn't show up, then an officer had to go and actually, even if the contractor doesn't get somebody there in time, we still provide officers in case there's an unattended crossing. So
The way I look at it, this is one of the fundamental duties that we have as a city. It actually is what we're a city for. We're not a city for paying lawyers to defend us against lawsuits. That's not really what we're for, but we end up doing a lot of that. And every time I see those legal bills, no offense to Ryan at all, he's done a fantastic job for us. But every time I see those legal bills, and then look at a curb or a street or a sidewalk that needs repair, or another officer or a patrol car that we need, those kinds of things make me cringe.
I'm more than willing to cut a lot of stuff. That's probably just not one of them.
Well, yeah, I'm just saying. I'm wondering if the school should help us on the cost of that, since it is.
What do we do?
School.
They reimburse us for the SROs, right? So, but they don't do
that
it.
in the SRS. Yeah.
So, they pay for those. They are helping with some of the stuff. We just have to do our part for infrastructure.
is there a majority? Obviously, I don't. There's not a majority to it up table or go a different direction, at least not of the people that we've got attending, because it appears that Lee and Rich are ready to make take action on this.
Yeah,
Christina Harrison?
No, I'm supportive of this.
I'd go ahead and make the motion.
Okay.
I'll second.
Motion, Moore, second Harrison, that we approve the proposed one-year agreement with All City Management Services, crossing guard services from August 1st, 2017 to July 31st, 2018, for an amount not to exceed $50,904. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? Consent agenda item number 3 passes. New business item number 1. Consider adopting a resolution authorizing the city of Gardner, Kansas to construct certain traffic way improvements and to issue general obligation bonds of the city to pay the cost thereof pursuant to KSA 12-685. Michael, good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The first item on the agenda is for the bond funding of our 2017 street maintenance project. And so items then 2, 3, and 4 are paid for with this bond resolution and then the future bond sale. And in order to do the bond sale, we need to go ahead and do this resolution that defines what our traffic way and traffic way connections are. Bond council has reviewed this. Had one little tweak to it that we took care of. As far as the mapping, it was very negligible on any of the cost or figures therein, and so we think we're safe moving forward with that. And again, our pavement management, we're looking at chip sealing, we're looking at some minor curb replacements, and we're looking at asphalt mill and overlay. And so if it's a bonded street, so those streets on the map that say bonded, that means we can issue debt for those, and then we use the half-cent sales tax to pay that debt. And then the ones on the map that are taxed, that's essentially we're paying cash for those. That's what the blue ones mean. So.
Public comments regarding new business item number 1? Anyone? No one coming forward. Questions for Michael regarding new business item number 1?
Just, when you say paying cash for, you're talking about cash from the sales tax, right?
That's correct, yes.
The one concern I have with what we've done so far has been, and I mentioned this to you in our streets and sidewalks meeting, it's been the chip seal that we've had.
Yes.
What steps are we taking to ensure better quality going forward?
So we're doing a couple things. One, we are having the contractor from last year's project come back out and look at it with us and look at some repair locations. And so we hope to address some of those. And then the other thing that we're going to do moving forward this year is really look at and work to ensure that we're one, in the temperature range, which I think we were last year. It's very important to stay in the temperature range, but then also to get a good look at the consistency of, are you getting the proper amount of oil and aggregate, and those two together. And so we will, continue to look at that as we move forward.
Other questions or comments for Michael or other staff? Kimberly, do I have a resolution number? Sorry.
1969.
I'd entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Moore, second Melton, that we adopt resolution number 1969, authorizing the city of Gardner, Kansas to construct certain traffic way improvements and to issue general obligation bonds of the city to take the costs thereof pursuant to KSA 12-685. City Clerk, can you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Melton.
Yes.
Councilmember Winters.
Yes.
Councilmember Harrison.
Yes.
Councilmember Moore.
Yes.
Councilmember Shute.
Yes.
New business item number 1 passes. New business item number 2, consider authorizing the city administrator to execute a contract with Bettis Asphalt. Michael?
Yeah, so what we did this year, one of the things we did to help us achieve better advertising, better bid prices, better, hopefully better work and quality coordination, is we broke our pavement management up into 3 separate projects, essentially primarily consisting of this project, which is asphalt, which includes the mill and overlay portions of the project, and then we separated out the concrete, which is the next item on the agenda, and then the chip seal. And so we separated those out. We changed some of the bid items around in those, and essentially what we wound up with as compared to last year, as far as the bids, just a summary of all of them, we wound up with bid prices about 12% lower than last year's bid prices, which is equal to close to $250,000 in savings, just by implementing those changes in the way we went about advertising the project and bidding the project. And if you'll notice on the larger portions of this, which are the asphalt and the concrete, we received a significant number of bids, and we had a lot of folks looking at these projects. And so this first bid is, again, primarily the asphalt portion of the project, the mill and overlay, the asphalt, and Bettis Asphalt Construction was the low base bid at $846,571. And then we did have an alternate bid, and that's work at the wastewater treatment plant and milling and overlaying their parking and drives. And the alternate bid was $98,926.25. And so the total base and alternate is $945,497.25. And the base bid is paid for out of the half-cent sales tax, both bonded and cash. And then the alternate is from utility funding for CIP project.
Public comment regarding new business item number 2. No one coming forward. Questions or comments regarding new business item number 2? Wait, go ahead.
Just a quick question about the $250,000 in savings.
Yes.
How many feet or miles of curb will that replace?
Well, if we put the 250 towards it, I haven't calculated. I can divide out, but quite a bit.
You can make something up.
Yeah, it's a lot. I'd say about 13,000 feet. Give or take. But,
Thank you. And good work on that, by the way.
thank you.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. And staff as well.
Anyone else? If not, I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Melton, second Shute. We authorize the city administrator to execute a contract with Bettis Asphalt and Construction for the 2017 Pavement Management Program for street resurfacing, asphalt, mill, and overlay in an amount of $945,497.25, and authorize the city administrator to approve construction-related change orders up to an additional 10%, or $94,549.73. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstention? New business item number 2 passes. New business item number 3, consider Authorizing the city administrator to execute a contract with Orr Wyatt Streetscape, 2017 pavement management program. Michael?
Yeah, again, the same project, and this is the concrete portion with the total base and alternate bid of $314,520.65. And again, it's a significant savings over last year's bid prices. Orr Wyatt is working on the trail out there. They are admittedly having some difficulty, but it's really due to the rain out there. And rain in construction can actually be a good thing. It can be a bad thing, and it all depends on the timing, and the timing out there has been terrible. But Orr Wyatt is very highly recommended, and they've been good to work with out there thus far.
Okay. Public comments regarding new business item number 3? No one coming forward. Questions or comments regarding new business item number 3?
I have a quick question.
Go ahead.
The Orr Wyatt bid was significantly less than anything else on there. I mean, they're not going to come back and say, oh, we ran into this problem or that problem, and it's going to get closer to the...
No.
They were about 80-something thousand less than the next
And I think
closest.
that looking at that, their unit price on the curb, it's not that much different, and they're a little bit less on a curb inlay. I think overall, if you look at where they're at, I think that they're within the range that would be expected.
Okay.
So, and their bid prices are what they bid, and it's on a per unit bid price. One of the things you look at, is some of the mobilization, and then the traffic control items, and sometimes people will hide those costs somewhere else, which is I think and I don't want to get too far off in the weeds because Laura will get mad at me for making assumptions about the bids, but if you look at like Julius Kaz Construction, their mobilization is $34,000, and Orr Wyatt's is $19,000. So right there's $15,000 of the difference. Orr Wyatt's already here; they're already mobilized, so you would expect them to be able to do a better bid. So I think that factors into it, that they're already here and on
I
site.
think they already know how awesome we are to work for, too.
Correct.
Lee?
Just the only question I have is what assurances will we have that we'll have the premium aggregate for this concrete?
Yeah, we'll review their shop drawings and ensure that meets our requirements.
The reason I ask that question, as you well know, is that the problem that we've had in the city with our curbs around all the different neighborhoods was several years ago. I guess about 10 or 15 years ago, there was some poor aggregate that got mixed into the concrete that we ended up, we along with all the other metropolitan areas, got kind of stuck with, and that's why a lot of the curbs are failing prematurely. So,
Christina, did you have anything?
I did not.
Okay. I couldn't remember if you were motioning or Steve?
Not much. I've got comments up to next item.
Entertain a motion on new business item number 3.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Shute, second Harrison, that we authorize the city administrator to execute a contract with Orr Wyatt Streetscape for the 2017 pavement management program for street resurfacing concrete in an amount of $314,520.65. Authorize the city administrator to approve construction-related change orders up to an additional $31,452.10, or 10%. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstention? New business item number 3 passes. New business item number 4, consider authorizing the city administrator to execute a contract with Harbor Construction for the 2017 pavement management program for street resurfacing granite chip seal. Michael.
Yeah, again, this is our pavement management program, and the chip seal portion of that is the primary bid item. And the low bidder on this was Harbor Construction, and at $456,297.53. This is not the same contractor as last year's project. We did contact their references and received positive feedback, and recommend that we move forward with the construction with Harbor.
Public comments regarding new business item number 4? Nobody coming forward? Questions or comments? Steve?
Yeah, I went on ahead and my apologies, I didn't get this done before the meeting started, but I had a chance. Our neighborhoods, I think the 3 of us were in neighborhoods where granite chip seal was used last year. And this was with the previous contractor, I understand that. Would you be able to put those pictures up? This is basically kind of an example of what's been happening in my part of town where we had the chip seal happening. Basically what you see there is the chip seal is wearing away, and and you're seeing a whole lot of basically the underlying oil is showing up. We're seeing this in a whole lot of the areas last year where the chip seal was put down, and I think I know why that's happening, and it's because of the fact that we got such a late start last year in putting out that chip seal that it never got a chance to heat cure, and they also laid it on really, really thick in those neighborhoods, and so it never really got a chance to bond correctly. And I know it may not affect this year's contract, but is there any ability for us to, see about rectifying these particular circumstances?
Yeah, and so as I mentioned on our first item, we are going back and talking with the contractor that was our general contractor on last year's project, and we'll be looking at these areas. And it's really important that, again, that the oil be put down at the right rate, that the rock be put down at the right rate.
Correct.
And some of the areas that I've seen and that I've looked at, there's some where the aggregate, is no longer there. There's some that's, the oil is was a little bit too heavy, and so what you're seeing is oil on top of the rock. The main thing is to make sure that you still have that good seal of the oil, and that's what we're aiming for, to make sure that we have that good seal. And where you see the most wear and tear on any chip seal project is the turning movements.
Yeah, but if you go back to the previous picture, even on the regular streets, you're seeing some wear and tear even on those parts of the street.
And
that's the turning from back.
And I'm not sure, on this particular driveway, if that's, it looks like wear and tear from the turning. It's difficult to tell on here if it's, if the aggregate's gone or if it's oil coming up. And the driveway right across looks great.
Correct.
So it's.
I mean, this is one.
And I think it's a variation in the oil rate, and
okay.
And that can come from a lot of different factors.
Yeah, I've also got some complaints from individuals in our neighborhood that the oil is coming up onto their vehicles and causing problems, and that's another concern too, is that we don't want oil coming into people's driveways or on their vehicles.
And if you'd be so kind as to forward me
Absolutely.
specifics, locations, we will definitely make sure that we, get our eyes on it. We have been out reviewing last year's project, though.
Yeah, and that's not a problem.
And one thing that I did want to talk about, since you brought it up, the chip seal, it is a less expensive product. It is made to, again, seal the roadway.
Yeah.
It's not there. It doesn't necessarily make it look better. It definitely does not make it ride better. It's just there to protect the roadway, to help keep that moisture from infiltrating. And just as an example, if you took this year's project and last year's project and you added them together and did those chip seal areas as mill and overlay, in addition to what we paid,
Oh, it would be much more
it'd be
expensive.
over $1.5 million more. And so, yeah, it is a different treatment.
And let me be clear, Michael, I'm not talking about aesthetics.
Sure.
This has nothing to do with the aesthetics. I couldn't care less as to how the road looks. My concern really was more of, we have aggregate that's been coming up, that's been washing into the gutters. We've had, especially with the rains this spring, it's really gotten bad.
Okay.
And the fact that we're getting oil coming up off the road and getting onto people's vehicles. So, again, it has nothing to do with how they look. I've had no problems. I've defended the chip seal and overlay for quite a while, saying
Right. I
the
appreciate
excess
that.
aggregate will go away.
Yeah.
But the problem was it was so cool, I don't think it ever got a chance to bond right.
And I'm not sure on their temperatures. They were looking into our inspection reports, et cetera, and looking at those.
Okay, thanks, Michael. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
This is something that we have talked about extensively in our streets and sidewalks meetings. And it's something that affects me on my street, right in front of my house, oil on my vehicles as well. So it is something that we're concerned about. And I guess what I want to know is, I know that we're going back to this contractor or the previous contractor to make sure that that there's to see if there's some remedy for some of this. I guess what I want to make sure of is in going forward, we have the same. We have some specific things we can do with this contractor that we're proposing here, that we can make sure that there's some relief for us in the case of a quality issue.
And we do have performance and maintenance bonds in there, and as well as our specification on the chip seal itself.
And where we got to needing the chip seal is important to understand too. Why we need the chip seal and why we are where we are is because we're approximately 10 years behind on street maintenance. So we have a lot of street miles to cover. And so the Streets and Sidewalks Committee decided that it would stretch our dollars further to only mill and overlay those streets that are in the worst shape, the ones that couldn't be repaired or couldn't be made somewhat smooth with chip seal. So that's how we got to where we are and why we're doing what we're doing. So.
And again, I don't have a problem with the chip seal process, as long as it's done right and we can warranty it.
The other thing I'll mention about chip seal too is we did choose a more expensive chip seal than what you might find out in the county, and other municipalities use this, namely Lenexa and Leawood both use this exact granite seal type of treatment. So.
Anyone else? I would entertain a motion.
So moved. Second.
Motion Melvin, second Harrison, that we authorize the city administrator to execute a contract with Harbor Construction Incorporated for the 2017 pavement Management Program for Street Resurfacing, granite chip seal in an amount of $456,297.53, and authorize the city administrator to approve construction-related change orders up to an additional 10% or $45,629.75. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? New business item number 4 passes. New business item number 5, consider adopting a resolution approving the 2018 through 2022 County Assistance Road System Program for road improvements within the city of Gardner, Kansas, also known as the CARS program. Michael?
Yeah, again, this is for our CARS funding, and we've made these applications for years 2018 through 2022. Those projects in the out years can change, but the 2018 application is actually made it through the first round of funding. It's headed towards the county for approval. And that again is the Santa Fe and Waverly Road project, allowing us to improve 175th Street from US 56 out to Waverly Road. And this funding goes right along with the stormwater funding for the project that we've already received. And this is a housekeeping issue, if you will.
That's public comments regarding new business item number 5. All right, no one coming forward. I'm sure that our friend Adam is probably wishing he was still in town about now. But any other comments or questions regarding new business 5?
I'd love to see that known as the Adam Boydston commemorative intersection.
Yeah.
I'm curious how many hours your team spent on these applications.
It's something that we haven't tracked. It's a lot with the studies and with the preliminary documentation, et cetera.
And I only draw attention to that because I realize, I understand what a significant contribution this is, and your team deserves to be commended for it. So,
Thank you.
that's all I have.
Anyone else? Well, this would be resolution number 1970. I'd entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Shute, second. Winters. We adopt resolution number 1970 approving the 2018 through 2022 County Assistant Road System Program for road improvements within the city of Gardner, Kansas. City Clerk, can you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Winters?
Yes.
Councilmember Harrison?
Yes.
Councilmember Moore?
Yes.
Councilmember Shute?
Yes.
Councilmember Melton?
Yes.
Resolution 1970 passes. New business item number 6. Consider adopting an ordinance of the City of Gardner, Kansas, amending Ordinance 2529, incorporated by reference the 2016 Standard Traffic Ordinance for Kansas cities. I'll stop there. Laura Gorley.
They stole my thunder. This is a housekeeping issue. The state passed a law to increase the fines for seatbelts effective July 1, and this is your first meeting after July 1. The League of Kansas Municipalities sent out an email saying that this happened, and oh, by the way, you're all out of compliance unless you pass an ordinance to fill the stopgap until the new books come out, and they're not ready yet. So you need to pass the ordinance, or you need to stop writing seatbelt tickets.
I say stop.
Well, you can vote no.
All right.
So that's pretty much all there is to it.
Okay. Public comments regarding new business item number 6. No one coming forward. Questions or comments regarding ordinance number
2549.
Lee, go ahead.
I will just comment that I guess I'm sort of in agreement with Rich on saying stop because it's, seatbelt. You get pulled over by a state trooper for not wearing a seatbelt. That's fine. The state has made that clear. That's their statute, but it is a personal responsibility, personal choice as far as I'm concerned. So, yeah, I don't know if it's really our role to ensure that people wear a seatbelt. So, I don't know. What does it mean if we're out of compliance? What does that do,
Well,
Ryan?
we can't write tickets.
Right.
It just means we can't write
Main
tickets.
change is the increase of the fine.
Right.
From 10 to 35.
The law itself, well, and it's not even our revenue.
No,
It's the state. So the difference is it is gonna reappear in your standard traffic ordinance, so if you really don't want to do it as a body, you'll have to address that when you adopt the standard traffic ordinance, but I don't think you can, actually,
It's a revenue generator for the state.
for the state.
So if what happens? So I mean, I want to go through this whole exercise. If we don't do anything with this, what happens? We've got to go and change an ordinance. Is that what you were saying? Basically, we got to change our traffic code.
Well, if we write seatbelt tickets, we have to collect $30 and remit it to the state.
Right, and that costs us money to collect that money and to write the ticket and all that stuff, and we get no compensation for that.
You do not get court costs for this ticket.
So we get no court cost, we get no revenue whatsoever to repay for the officer's time.
You get the first $10 because that was the original law. So this additional 20 is all going to the state.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but this would help with our backed up court status a little bit.
I don't know how many stop sign ticket or seatbelt tickets we write, so.
Chief,
let's talk to Chief about it.
I've been watching you over there.
Just want to point out that 70% of the people killed in traffic fatalities were not wearing a seatbelt. That's the reason why there are enforcement efforts at the federal and state level, and that we get grant funding for seatbelt initiatives at the local level.
And understood. But the portion of this, now, do we have an existing ordinance on the books regarding seatbelt violations?
You do, it's the standard traffic ordinance.
The standard traffic ordinance, which provides for $10 in fines, correct?
That's no longer valid.
It is no longer valid because the standard traffic ordinance actually got deep sixed with the legislature.
It just isn't quick. They haven't just finished the book.
Yeah, because they weren't thinking that through.
Well, I think it happens every year. They have to have time to grind it and then bring it out.
What would normally happen is they would change the law and they'd give you time for the new STOs to come out.
Yeah.
And so they make the effective date if they didn't want the revenue. But they want the revenue starting July 1.
Of course they do.
Right, so that's what's going on.
And here's the other thing is the grant money that the chief's talking about. I mean, this is something that, being in compliance with the state is probably a consideration on that kind of grant application.
How much
Would that
grant
be
money are we
correct?
talking, Chief?
And I'm not trying to make a case for grant money. I'm just saying that, there's a reason why seatbelt initiatives
Oh, sure.
are a priority,
Oh,
and it's
of course.
because, compliance will lower the traffic fatalities. And it's a significant issue across the country. I mean, there's really no difference than, having speed limits. The reason we have speed limits
course.
is, to keep people from doing things that are going to get themselves hurt.
Well, actually, no. The speed limit is to prevent people from hurting other people. That's the primary reason for a speed limit.
And there's a lot of traffic accidents that happen because people that aren't wearing seatbelts, that may be a minor accident, but they lose control of their vehicle because the first initial contact, they lose their ability to operate their vehicle in a safe manner.
So how much grant money are we talking about, Chief?
Again, I'm not prepared to answer that. I don't know.
Is it in the tens
I
of-
wouldn't make the argument for the grant money. I mean, I
Yeah.
think that's irrelevant.
I'm just thinking that this is a perfect opportunity on July 3rd to give a little bit of freedom back.
It's,
I'm all for personal choice, but
Can
I'm
I
not
ask
gonna,
a-
this isn't where I'm gonna make a big stand on
So-
seatbelts.
So the fine's increasing. So if we write a seatbelt ticket, we have to pay it is $30, right? Based on state statute. I mean, we don't have the ability, other than Chief saying, in Gardner, Kansas, we're not gonna enforce seatbelt laws. So we're taking the laws, I don't
The
even know how
state
that would
and the
work,
I'll tell you, in Kansas City, I fought for years to make it a primary seatbelt violation so that you could pull people over that weren't wearing a seatbelt. That's how I believe in it that much. I mean, if you go to enough fatality accidents like I have, and you see people that die because they don't put a seatbelt on, I mean, it's
We're talking about kids too. I mean, like, you
Yeah.
don't seatbelt your kid.
Well, my priority, my primary objection is not the value of the seatbelt laws. I've been or been by enough wreck sites to know that you walk away if you wear a seatbelt and you're carried away if you're not. That's not the issue. The issue is that the fine folks at the Kansas legislature decided that they were going to use it as a money-making opportunity because they can't balance their stupid books. And so they're going to be putting that on the shoulders of people, a lot of which can't afford to, take on that burden. And so that's the thing that bothers me more than anything else.
but shouldn't you take that up with your state legislator?
Oh, I understand
that's
that.
not
No,
us.
I'm making my statement. I'll vote for this, but I'm making my statement. And then we've got some folks in Topeka that are totally tone deaf.
Well, I just want to fully understand it before I vote one way or the other.
Sure.
And my objection to it is similar to yours, Steve, that all we're talking about doing is making ourselves able to pay the state $20 every time we write a ticket. So and we're going to pay the money that it costs us to collect that $20. We're going to pay for the transaction fee to get that money to the state. So we're expending dollars and we're getting no benefit other than the ability to say that we support the state's traffic law.
We get the first $10.
It's the notorious
You get it
unfunded
before, yeah.
mandate is what it is.
Right.
But, I mean, how many tickets do you think we're talking about? I mean, we're not talking about thousands.
Right. I mean,
Okay, probably, there'd be a lot of tickets, so,
Oh,
to be
not
material.
I'm just looking at the municipal court side. Freeing up some time.
So I guess it wasn't just such a housekeeping issue then.
When you just think you're gonna just rubber stamp stuff up here.
I thought it was.
All right.
And any other questions or comments, or can I get a motion to approve ordinance
So moved.
2549?
Second.
Motion Winter, second Harrison, that we approve ordinance number 2549. Amending ordinance number 2529 that incorporated by reference the 2016 standard traffic ordinance, Kansas City's 44th edition, by amending section 3 by adding a new subsection H to chapter 10, amending section 182.1 of the standard traffic ordinance, adding a new subsection H to chapter 10 of the City of Gardner Code of Ordinances, which regulates traffic within the corporate limits of the City of Gardner, Kansas. City Clerk, can you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Harrison?
Yes.
Councilmember Moore?
no.
Councilmember Shute?
Yes.
Councilmember Melton?
No.
Councilmember Winters?
The deciding vote, yes.
2549 passes.
It's a struggle.
That takes us to the end of new business. There is no other business before council updates. Let's see how we get through this. Chief, you have anything?
Yes, sir.
City Clerk, Finance, Legal?
I wasn't going to say anything, but as Councilmember Moore brought up the legal fees. I have talked to Cheryl about those fees. And she is doing some due diligence on her end about those flat fee arrangements. In the meantime, I have gone back retrospectively back to April and written down those statements to what we talked about, the $11,000, so getting several $1,000 credit for that month, and then also for May, I'm going to do that as well. It's about $7,500 write-down. And we went back, and I did get approval of that from the president of the firm, so we did get a sign off on that. We did go back and look at the billings this year compared to years past, and because of the litigation that we're handling, they are conceivably very high. And I think Cheryl can tell you that, planning and zoning litigation can be very expensive. So that's the difference. But in terms of the everyday city attorney work, it's Cheryl is going to go back and do some due diligence and see if she can agree with the number we had talked about. But in the meantime, I intend to keep writing down those billings. And then I've gone back and revisited the billings for May. And because the billings have been so hot, I'm going to do a substantial write-down on the litigation as well, because I know that it's been a bit of hardship on that line item. So I just want to let you all know that.
Well, thank you.
Ryan's actually,
So Councilmember Moore, persistence pays off.
Thank you.
fiscal responsibility.
Scott?
Sorry we didn't have some staff here tonight. Everybody's working diligently for the 4th, and if Gail was still here, I would let her know that our department's working on their day off tomorrow, and we definitely appreciate all their hard work. Just want to remind everybody that the poll opens early tomorrow and closes early tomorrow. Opens at 11 a.m. and closes at 6 p.m. First 200 people get free sunscreen and a bomb pop. So
Hey.
adults there you go.
Not adults, though.
And then, 4th, entertainment starts at 3 and fireworks at 10. And we appreciate a lot of everybody's help that's contributing tomorrow. And there'll be some kudos probably at the next meeting, a long laundry list of things that's going to be coming after that. So anyway.
Very good. Thanks, Scott. Larry?
Couple of quick updates for you. First of all, I want to thank you all for participating in the groundbreaking out at Hampton Inn. And I was unable to be here. I was out of the state at the point in time of the conference, but it looks good in the pictures, and I'm glad that you participated in it, and I appreciate that. We've had a little bit of a rain delay, as you might imagine, in Dairy Queen and CVS the last couple of days. And you may have noticed a very large piece of equipment at the Dairy Queen site, and what we have is some soils issues, and they've decided to pier the foundation. So you have this very large piece of equipment over there that is probably very interesting to watch if you happen to be around. But you might want to pay attention to that. CVS has had a little bit of a rain delay over there, but they're also closed today for the holiday. Their boss gave their staff off Monday and Tuesday. We've got also an update for Commissioner Milton on Willow Chase. We released the adjustment papers today, and so that project's moving forward. There's no longer any type of holds or anything on that, and we'll be expecting to get their building plans and so forth on the schedule that they wanted, which is probably next week. So we'll see how that works through. Real quick on fireworks, we had nine tents this year, and they seem to be doing well in the evening. The day, of course, looks a little slow, but the nights are busy. I will be bringing to you sometime between now and next year a change to our fireworks ordinance, and that has to do with the amount of signage we allow. Our original ordinance only allowed one 8 by 32 square feet name sign, basically, to recognize the tent. So, and our new ordinance has quite a bit of restrictions on the amount of temporary flags that you can, or temporary marketing and things you can have. We've reviewed that on staff, and we've decided that there are some things that they could be using, but we'll need to amend our fireworks ordinance to allow them to use, because the fireworks ordinance said it could only have one sign. So we'll just have to amend that to allow temporary signs as an additional signage permit for next year, if we continue to have fireworks stands.
Yeah, that's one of the big complaints I think that we had received, was that the signage was insufficient for them to be able to market, and that there were some approvals that took place, and then they were told to take down their signs. Yeah.
We didn't have the sign problem last year and the sign didn't change, so, I mean, it's just they wanted to put more up, and they were more willing last year as a first year to abide by the rules. This year, they were less willing to abide by the rules. And so we've had some conversations, very amenable. I mean, the conversations have been very good, and I think we've come into a good resolution for that this year, and we'll have it straightened out for next year.
Well, in the same vein, we actually had a conversation with a tent, one of the tents, and they had said that of all of the stands that they had like 18 stands or something like that around eastern Kansas, they said the city of Gardner was the best, most courteous, most helpful city that they had ever had business with on their on getting their tents. And so
This guy's stealing my thunder.
I wanted to congratulate you guys. You did a really good job.
Yeah, Larry, I was going to tell you
All right,
that.
so
I mean,
you got to be
you had to
faster,
jump
Rich.
in front of me.
Come on,
I mean,
you got to be faster.
Thanks, Larry.
Thanks, Larry.
Michael?
Yeah, since we're talking about signs, our two entrance signs on US 56, we have been getting new signs made to go out there and put up. We had the artwork all signed off and everything, and our street crews picked up the signs in the last few days and unboxed them and went out to put them up, and the artwork was not correct. So they're going back to the sign company, and hopefully it won't take them as long to fix. And then I did want to, next week, July 13th, is our next public meeting for the Main Street Corridor project. I believe that starts at 5 o'clock, but watch the website and email, etc. And that, I believe, also will be held at the fairgrounds. And is that correct? Thank you. And as such, our streets committee for next week, for Tuesday, I believe we're going to cancel that and really just encourage everyone to come out to that public meeting Thursday.
Very good. Thank you, Michael. Sure. Lee?
Yes, I would like to say thank you to Scott Gary, our Parks and Rec Director, for getting the fountain turned back on. And I understand that you're working on the yellow K.
Now we'll get that yellow cane taken care of.
Awesome.
Probably needs to be painted.
So I understand there was a trip to Canada to pick up the pump part by someone.
No, nobody traveled to Canada, but
I didn't
it
see
took
that
a
in
little
the
while to get
expenses,
it.
but it would have been a red flag, I can tell you.
I'm kidding. There was no trip to Canada, but the part did come from Canada. So that was required to fix the pump to get get the fountain turned on. So much appreciated. Get that done. So the other thing I wanted to mention was I have received some complaints about the fireworks, and it's one of those fireworks ordinance is one of those things where we're never going to make everyone happy. But so it's incumbent upon the folks that are enjoying the fireworks to do their best to clean up after themselves and to have a little bit of empathy for your neighbors that are not partaking of the fireworks, and especially to make sure that you're taking care to shoot the fireworks in a responsible manner so that you're not damaging property or leaving trash on other people's property or using other people's property to shoot your fireworks without their permission. Other people's property includes the city's property, which belongs to everyone. It's public property. And I know there's been some confusion with folks not understanding that the street is public property and is off limits for firing of personal fireworks. and there's good reason for that. And part of it is some of the debris that gets left in the street. Because it doesn't belong, the street doesn't belong to anyone in particular. Nobody in particular is going to clean up after the things that are left in the street. So those things will end up in our storm gutters, and we have enough trouble with drainage, as Michael will attest, that we don't need the additional debris from fireworks clogging up our storm drains. So one of the complaints I heard was the tents in the city are tacky, and I can't do anything about that. I really wish I could, but tents are tents. They're here temporarily. They'll go away after they're prescribed. 7 days they're allowed to be here. But I guess we allowed them a couple of days to set up. Yeah, so set up and take down. So we're talking 2 weeks of having to look at tents. So hopefully that's not too much for everybody. But I guess I would like to say that I'm sorry that I can't help everyone that doesn't like the fireworks. But there's really not a lot we can do with that. So, but that's it.
Thanks, Lee.
Christina?
No, the only thing I want to say is I received quite a bit of positive feedback regarding the town hall that we did last Wednesday. So for everybody that participated, presented, asked questions, I received it from people that were there, and then people who either sent emails or requested information afterwards. And everybody was very impressed with the amount of preparedness that everybody had. So just thanks to everybody that participated in that.
Steve?
Yeah, I'll second what Christina said. I've gotten all sorts of very positive feedback. They loved the fact that we had a videographer there and took some very good video. I think we have a new movie star in our city directors with Chief Pruding, as he's fixing his hair over there. He did an excellent job on that and really opened up a lot of people's eyes on the dire conditions that our men in blue are having to deal with. So I wanted to commend everybody. It was a great a bit of communications work too. I know that Danica put a lot of hard work into that. And I know she's not here to be acknowledged, but I want to acknowledge her for the record. I think we do have an ADA meeting coming up. It's the third Thursday of this month, and I don't have my calendar up right now. I believe that it would be the 20th, which is after the next meeting. We are coming up on that, and looking forward to having some good discussion about how to make our community more accessible. And with that, I will pass.
Just real quick, Larry, follow up on the CVS. I've had some people ask about the road closure. Do you know any approximate time frame on that aspect of the CVS? Or maybe Michael, sorry. Yeah, sorry.
At this time, I don't. We had expected the first phase for it to just be closed a few weeks, and again, it's weather's really affecting things. And I will say there's two phases. One is the sewer work that's going on, and then the second is actually the roadway itself.
Good. Good.
You want to go? Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I'd forgotten one other thing. I'm sorry I wasn't here for the presentation regarding the salary study for the police. I had actually had an opportunity. I was just walking by earlier today and stopped by the police department, and I know that we have some challenges. We have our challenges with regard to trying to do some salary adjustments, and I don't know because I wasn't here for the first hour of this meeting, and that's personal emergency I had to deal with. But was there any discussion about other innovative ways to bridge the gap on those salary shortfalls?
I think that there's a commitment to continue working between Chief Pruding, Gail, and other people that's important. It seems like they're on their way to resolving the issue.
Okay, well, one of the things I had a chance to discuss with the chief, and I think it might behoove us to even look in that direction, is looking at retention bonuses for individuals who might be, really low and out of whack with some of the other areas. I know that the other jurisdictions are doing recruiting bonuses, signing bonuses for their officers, but if we're able to fill it with a lump sum type of compensation, that would not affect our healthcare, things like that. I think Capers does. There's some Capers impact, and there's some tax impact, obviously, but it would still help us to bridge that gap, at least in a short term. We could do it maybe in conjunction with some sort of with an agreement. Basically, if you take this lump sum, then if you decide to leave within the next 12 months, then there will be some sort of pro rata reimbursement or something like that. And that would allow us to be able to at least keep the people that we want to keep, and not have such a heavy impact year over year, which I think is what we're trying to ultimately fix. But it's something that we may be able to help keep some of our good officers who I know are being recruited by other jurisdictions. But that was one of those things I wanted to make sure we had on the record. Just another idea. I want to think outside the box on this.
Anything else?
No, that's it. I'm sorry.
Rich?
I'm gonna say thank you to Larry for all the help. The stands that I've talked to, they were ecstatic about how everybody handled everything. The one thing I did hear was just that, staff kind of with one tent made a recommendation that they really wanted to be in one place in the area, and staff made a recommendation. And they went with staff's recommendation at the Casey's. They wanted to be close, the 183rd. They wanted to be closer to the Casey's for parking reasons, and staff said, "We want you over here." And they were a little upset by that. Only they just didn't want to say anything because they didn't, they don't want to rock the boat. But they're over there in a big boat, so they're kind of like, we would like to. They have no parking over there. Everybody's got to park on the grass, or So that would be the one thing if we can get them closer to the high side. If there's a rain issue, maybe that would be great. But other than that, everybody was ecstatic about the way things are going. The signed ordinance is something we need to look at, not only for the fireworks thing, but I think for businesses in general in Gardner. Every business owner, once these folks in the fireworks stands were asking me, I'm going around talking to other businesses too about how things are going over the holiday, and everybody kind of has a problem with our sign ordinance, and we may be just like everybody else, but I'd like to have us look at what we can do possibly in the future to amend that and make it where the businesses feel like we're doing our part to allow them to advertise so we can generate the dollars that we need. So we can look at that in the future. The other thing someone asked me about is a possible location for folks who don't have a place to shoot off fireworks legally. Like if they're in Conestoga, the apartments, if we could maybe before next year, if we still have fireworks, find a place where we can say, hey, look, if it's a $5 cover or whatever, you can go in this area and shoot, and that way it kind of covers for if we have to clean up or something else. That way, at least there's a way for people to shoot them off without doing it illegally on somebody's property that they're not allowed. Of course, that may allow us to bring in people from other areas too who can't shoot off fireworks in their city. So I'd love to
better find a big lot.
I remember when I was young, we did that
Right.
in Wichita. We
Go
barely
out.
remember.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I think I'm going to talk to the school board possibly about this too, the president, and say, hey, is there something you guys could do with your parking lots that would allow that? So I'll bring that up with the school board president and see what their thoughts are. And we have a year to work it out, so I figure by then we'll either know or we won't, So, but I think it's an interesting idea to think about that for those people who don't have that ability. So, and the town hall was great. I really appreciate all the work everybody did. I did like the videography. It really made it easier for us to go ahead and, when those videos were out there, to go here, take a look at this. Here's all the documentation. The biggest problem I had with it was now on my YouTube, Michael Kramer's predominantly featured on videos I should watch, and I was like, whoa, Okay, but, you know, I'm used to it now, so it's okay, so. So, and then the final thing was I'd like us to look at, as a governing body, changing our paper of record. I did some research. Gardner News, this is according to the post office, has 266 subscribers that the post office delivers. That is included in Gardner and Edgerton. I think it was like 30 odd something in Edgerton, and that includes also 10 schools. So there are less than 1% of the population receives Gardner News in the city. And the Kansas City Star, when we got a hold of them, was 916 for Sunday. So, and I think that we would be better served for the dollars we're spending to get that information out to the public. I think it would be better to look at what we can do with a different paper of record. So, thoughts from the body?
Yeah, I'd be amenable to that. I think the numbers kind of speak for themselves.
I'm not sure though why we'd want the Kansas City Star to be our paper, the Gardner paper.
Well,
right?
according to ordinance, it has to be the paper that has the highest circulation within the community. In order to be able to get the information out to as many people as possible, like hearing notices and stuff like that primarily.
Job listings, different things, so.
I mean, personally,
I mean, I'm all about doing local stuff, but when it's, I know 700 people aren't getting for the coupons. You know, that's the reality of it. There's a.
I think most people get it online, and I mean,
Yeah, that's
anything
what
is
I
done
was gonna
online.
say. I'd be interested in the online presence too.
Ryan, I see you over there.
Oh, yeah. No, I've been through this exercise before. We changed papers of circulation in Westwood, and I think what the statute says is that it has to be a paper of, I can't remember the exact statutory language, that's what I was looking for. General, it's like of general circulation in the jurisdiction. Now in Westwood, they changed from Johns County Sun when it went out of business, and they publish with the legal record, which is significantly less expensive because they were really limited on options. But, you know, I don't think many people would take the legal record.
Yeah, I'm thinking that circulation's even less in,
Right, so it's
in
the
Gardner.
governing body that makes the determination as to whether there's sufficient circulation to put the city on notice.
So in my mind, there's no contest between Gardner News and the Kansas City Star, because not only are there 900 subscribers, but the Kansas City Star is sold in every single store in
Right.
Gardner. Every convenience store you can pick up a Kansas City Star, every grocery store, even in the pharmacies. And now I guess we're a city of pharmacies and convenience stores. So.
you know, I would be in favor of a little research to be done to see what other jurisdictions are doing around us with regard to their paper of record. And, you know, obviously Olathe's got the Olathe News. So they're out of business. See, that's another problem too. Newspapers are going out of business at an alarming rate. And so I would also like to see whether or not, does the statute, Ryan, does it specify they must have general print circulation?
I think that's being brought up in front of in the State House right now, because
Yeah.
really CFG does better than, even though it's
It's not
cesspool.
really I wouldn't call that a news source.
I mean, it's not a news source, but I mean, the information gets out to the public, that's what I'm saying, you know.
There's actually been discussion about changing it to going to online notice, but that change has not been made yet. You do
Yeah.
have actual publications. So.
Okay, because that really is where most newspapers are going online circulation anyway. Some
Right.
of them are going to exclusively online circulation. But I think that the important thing is that we make sure that the notices we send out are being sent to the broadest possible audience. And if we're, and really the cost per capita is almost immaterial as long as we get it out to people. So.
Larry?
And your last comment, sir, was what I was going to comment on. And I meant we're setting our budgets for 2018 and for the rest of this year. I mean, I doubt that you would change this year, but we would need to review our marketing costs because we know what our costs are for the local paper, for our ordinances and our resolutions, and for the public hearing notices. We're required to send out so many days in advance. So the research would certainly be appreciated if we'd have time to do that, just so we could verify that we could get stuff in whatever paper on a proper, notification deadline timeframe. So
I'd like to be able, if we can do that research and due diligence, make sure that we're getting the best bang for the buck and most people get to see the stuff that we're trying to put out.
So is that direction?
That's
I'm in
3.
favor of it.
That's fine.
That's a majority.
Good direction.
Yeah,
That's fine.
yeah.
And so, my guess is that that's a Ryan thing? Can you
I
look into that?
can, yeah, I can get you the statutory language, but it's probably costing.
Well, let's gather that together, present it to the body.
That's it for me.
Thanks, Rich.
That's all I've got.
Except for
I didn't think it was going to take until 9 o'clock this evening, but there you have it.
Just in time for fireworks.
I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion Harrison, second shoot that we adjourn. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, any abstentions? We are adjourned. Well,